How about it, though, for the great John Rothmann, he of his podcast, Around the Political World with John Rothmann. When it comes to politics, you are a sage, sir, and I am curious as to your reactions to Super Tuesday, both here in California and nationwide.
First of all, if I'm available March 14th, I'd be happy to drop in.
All right.
That's great personal privilege.
Yeah.
No surprises last night. Donald Trump's sweep was completely predictable. I think I spoke with you last week about Nikki Haley suspending her campaign, not dropping out, because by suspending, you keep the option open of jumping back in if something happens. DeSantis did the same thing. California Senate race, I knew Adam Schiff would take the number 1 spot. Not surprised Garvey took the number 2 spot, and the reason is because Adam Schiff promoted him so completely in order to ensure that he would be the opposition rather than Katie Porter, who I think was the other alternative. In terms of Gavin Newsom, I haven't heard, and maybe Kim can check this while we're talking, the final result on 1. There was no opposition to it, yet it's hanging by a thread, and that was Gavin Newsom's big thing. In terms of San Francisco politics, big wins for Mayor Breed. San Francisco willing to take the bold step of going not far to the right, but slightly to the right in order to try to keep things moving. So it was
don't skip over that, John. I mean, it looks like, this once bastion of progressivism is now tacking to, more law and order.
No, I think it's more a reaction to what's happening. I don't think it's a shift to the right. It's a pragmatic look by San Franciscans about where San Francisco is. I'm not surprised by the result. And interestingly enough, Daniel Lurie tried to get in on the deal with raising separate money for Prop E. I haven't heard yet whether there was how his campaign has reacted to it, but the credit goes to London Breed.
Yeah, you said that you thought that London Breed would carry the day. Go ahead, Kim.
Regarding Prop 1 with behavioral health services, 50% of the vote counted as of an hour ago. We're still at 50%, 50-50, neck and neck.
And there was no opposition. There were no on one measures or advertisements. But this is a big blow to Gavin Newsom. And it's interesting because I saw the earlier poll, and my brother and I were talking about it. I said, one's going to pass in a breeze. And he said, I'm not voting for it. I hope my brother isn't upset with me for revealing how he voted. But the point is, that was an indication to me that maybe I'm misreading what's happening on Prop 1. And that may have a lot to do with Garvey and the Republicans who really organized to make sure that Steve Garvey got into the runoff. And now we really have, and I'm very happy about it, a choice between a Democrat and a Republican, which is what we should have. I don't think Garvey has a chance of a snowball in hell, but you never know.
Come on, John. You on this one, I mean, I think you go with your first instinct. It doesn't have a snowball chance in hell. John, I was saying at the beginning of the show that, Democrats just split the vote out here, right? I mean, it was between Porter and Lee. It's a tough one. There just aren't the votes there.
But now the odds are Adam Schiff will be the next United States Senator from California.
And to be fair to Schiff, I mean, he's a courageous guy, put together a compelling impeachment proceeding, and I thought he led the way against some pretty strong, derisive headwinds. I mean, he pursued in a very tough environment these impeachments.
I agree. And let me tell you, I listened this morning to a conservative talk show host who spent a good 10 minutes just blasting Adam Schiff. And that is going to be what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to rip him apart. But we haven't elected a Republican statewide in California in more than 2 decades. And I expect that Adam Schiff will be the next United States Senator from California.
Just to our Southern California viewers and listeners, there's a measure, HLA, to expand these areas for biking and pedestrian travel, along with the development of the city. So this is something that is not a new phenomenon, but it's really now becoming something with momentum. They'll require all of these bike lanes and many of these unprotected lanes to become protected when they do business development and building development of some kind. So that looks
It'll
like
be
it's
very
passing.
interesting. I remember I lived in Southern California for many years, and I can tell you that the anti-biking sentiment, the pro-car sentiment, was unbelievable. So I'll be watching that one very closely.
Is there anything in the results? You said there were no surprises, but is there anything in the results nationwide on the Republican side that help you read tea leaves differently toward November?
Yes, and it's a great question. I think that Trump has a real disadvantage because a lot of the people who the Republican Party is nominating are election deniers. They're people who support Donald Trump. And if the indications from previous election deniers, and I look particularly to Pennsylvania, where the candidate for governor was a big election denier, I think the Republicans have a real problem. You mentioned the question of Elon Musk and the question of his bailing out Donald Trump. There will be money for Donald Trump. He's going to have the money to run a vigorous campaign. But there's a lot of negatives. And you asked about Nikki Haley. Let me just tell you, I have a pamphlet in my vast collection of memorabilia. Here's what these Democrats say about Kennedy. And it's all the Democrats prior to the convention who ripped John F. Kennedy up and down. My sense is, though, that the difference is this will not be printed word. The Republicans are going to take comments of leading Republicans. And I would be remiss if I didn't say a word about Mitch McConnell, whose retirement as leader did not surprise me. He's staying in the Senate, but he's retiring as leader. He's a Republican. That's his faith. And what he said, if you read the statement carefully, is Republican voters have made the choice, and I'm a Republican, so I'm going along with it. I don't think he's happy about it, but I find it unbelievably hypocritical. If my wife were attacked the way Elaine Chao was attacked by Donald Trump, I wouldn't give a tinker's damn one way or the other. I would not support him. But Mitch McConnell has made a decision. Being a Republican is part of his religion. It's part of his DNA. And so ultimately he'll fall into line. The same question, by the way, applies to Nikki Haley. After what Donald Trump said about her husband, after what he said about her, how can she possibly support Trump? But I think your conclusion was correct. And that is that in the end, the Republicans will demand it. Nikki Haley wants a political future. She knows her future is in the Republican Party if she has a future. And if the Republican Party is without Donald Trump after November, she wants to be there to pick up the pieces.
Well, Ted Cruz is another example. As I said before, it's crazy that these Molotov cocktails, rhetorically anyway, can be thrown at the wives of these dudes, and before you know it, they're working the phone banks for him. I mean, it's really, I don't see how you walk that back, and Trump didn't walk it back. He never did. He just, but Cruz is the one who said, Donald, when you come after my wife, that's different. You can come after me all you want, but when you come after my wife, that's a different story. And of course he smack talks, but then he's there, Ted Cruz is carrying the water for Donald Trump.
These people want a political future. And if they blast Donald Trump, remember, in the primaries, the Trump voters turn out to vote in huge numbers, and they make all the difference in the world. You can be a well-respected Republican office holder, like Liz Cheney was, and you can be defeated in a primary. And what is the tactic Donald Trump uses? It's primarying people. It's finding alternative candidates, backing them 100%, and getting the win. That's his strength, but it's also his weakness, because the people he backs generally lose the general election. So that's critical. One other point I'd like to make. Now the most important single question for the Republicans is, who will the vice presidential nominee be? Remember, Trump will be in his 80s. If he's elected president, question of mortality is real. And who are the people who are really pitching this? And you and I know we'll talk about this in the days and weeks to come. But we have Elise Stefanik, a woman from New York, third-ranking leader of the Republicans in the House. And she said if she were vice president, she would have voted along with Trump, unlike Pence. And the same thing with J.D. Vance, the senator from Ohio. Same attitude. Tim Scott of South Carolina. All of the people who are being talked about as major contenders for the vice presidency on the Trump ticket, they have to kiss the ring, as Kim McAllister put it so eloquently a few minutes ago. So that's going to be another interesting dimension to all of this. You know what? We are going to have so much to talk about between now and the election. And I just want to say one more thing. I have spent a lot of time studying the American presidency, studying campaigns in detail. I believe, and I will predict, that this will be the dirtiest campaign in modern American political history.
And please, John, you cannot take a lap on that prediction. It seems clearly the case. How dare you? How dare you claim that as some kind of bold prediction?
Why are you yelling?
My God! Of course, it's going to be dirty. The guy's a flamethrower. It's crazy. Why
are you yelling?
You know what? That's exactly the reaction I expect from Mark Thompson.
Let me ask you about,
and that is exactly the reaction the American people are going to have.
Let me ask you about some of these things I'm seeing in the chat. Okay, Elise Stefanik seems. So Elise Stefanik, Tim Scott, you mentioned them all. Let me ask you a question that really takes advantage of your history. You're such a scholar on this. The kind of thing. When you're building a ticket, I thought historically, you're looking to build a political coalition, oftentimes associated with the connections the vice presidential candidate has to a various state or constituency. So when you look at some of those names that you mentioned, Stefanik, Scott, et cetera, does that same arithmetic apply now?
No. And I'm so glad you asked the question. This precedent was broken when Bush chose Cheney. Remember, they were both from Texas, but Cheney moved to Wyoming in order to run, because constitutionally you have to do that, and nobody cared. We've learned a lesson. The American people don't vote for a vice president, they vote for a president. And so the old days of ticket balancing, Eisenhower, Nixon, Kennedy, Johnson, Humphrey, go down the list, Reagan, Bush, those days are gone. Now it doesn't really matter. And one of my hobbies, as you know, is the vice presidency of the United States. I probably have the foremost collection of material on vice presidents that exists. And I can tell you without any question that what we have boiled this all down to is there is no more ticket balancing as we once knew it. And so now what we are faced with is a presidential candidate who will choose the person who he is sure will kiss the ring, if I can quote Kim again.
Yes.
So that's the reality.
Last question. I was posing it earlier. How long before Nikki Haley endorses Donald Trump?
I think it has to be a very short time if she wants a political future. That is to say, let's assume just for a minute that Donald Trump stumbles or dies, or God forbid something happens before the convention. She is still a contender. She can throw her hat back in the ring, as can DeSantis, as can the others who've suspended, not ended, their campaigns. In order to win the Republican nomination now, and I think in the future, you have to have the so-called MAGA Republicans. You have to have at least Trump's blessing to a degree. Failing that, you cannot be nominated by the Republican Party. So the best thing that can happen to Nikki Haley is to have a reconciliation and say, I could never vote for Joe Biden. I must vote for Donald Trump. And whatever differences we've had, his policies are the best. That would be my prediction. It is rare in politics to find a person of such courage as Lynn Cheney. She deserved the Profiles in Courage Award. And you'll recall when we were on KGO, I think I was among the first to nominate her for that particular prize.
You're talking about Liz Cheney?
Yes.
Yeah.
Liz Cheney. And I think that kind of courage, well, I don't think that Governor Haley has that kind of courage.
I'll just because I just can't let it sit out there. Liz Cheney, you may give her points for her courageous act going up against those political headwinds that you've just described. But Liz Cheney's politics, you do not line up with.
Oh, no, not at all. And I've said repeatedly, I would never vote
She's
for
happy with the Supreme Court. Yeah. The right-wing agenda is a Liz Cheney agenda.
What you have to do is to read Profiles in Courage by John F. Kennedy. He chose senators who had the courage to stand up and doom their own political careers. That's what Liz Cheney did, and she deserves great credit for it. By the
Will
way,
Liz Cheney endorse Joe Biden?
maybe she's leaving the door wide open.
I mean,
Her position is that she will never, never endorse Donald Trump.
right.
May I say one word about the third party efforts? Just, I know we have limited time.
Yes, please go ahead.
And I resent you for that bitterly. I want you to know.
What?
The reality is that with Joe Manchin bowing out, not running, the no labels people really have a problem. People don't vote for a party; they vote for an individual. And unless no labels has a third party candidate for president who can really run, and Nikki Haley's people were asked about that, and they made very clear she's not going to jump ship. I want to say a word about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The issue is he does have popularity because of his name, but remember, it only works if he's on the ballot. So what I'm looking for in a third party candidate is whether or not they actually qualify to be on a ballot. And that applies to Cornel West. It involves Jill Stein, a lot of other people. So Cornel West's mistake was that he decided not to take the Green Party nomination. If he had, he would have been on the ballot in many states. But now we have to wait and see. Part of the dynamic of politics in this election year are the unpredictable factors. By the way, did you note that Weisselberg pled guilty and is going back to jail?
I mean, apparently that's the kind of loyalty that Trump engenders. I mean, my God, the guy's going back to Rikers, second time at Rikers.
That's right. And let me assure you that we are going to have many more incidents like this. You mentioned, I believe you did, or Kim did, April 25th as the date when the question of immunity is going to be considered by the Supreme Court. The decision should come before the end of the term in June. I don't believe that Trump will triumph on that in the court. But the question is, between June and November, will Mr. Smith have the ability to do what he needs to do? What I want to see, frankly, is Mike Pence on the witness stand under oath. I think it will make a huge difference in terms of the case. But these are all points of speculation. But that's what makes going around the political world every single day, whether you listen to my podcast or you read a newspaper or you support the Mark Thompson program and Nikki and of course Nikki Medora's program as well. That's what makes this so interesting. It's fluid and there is a dynamic to it. And that is why I turn on the radio at 3 a.m. to hear the news, much to my wife's chagrin.
And it's
Wait, is chagrin a ding word?
Chagrin is a ding word. And what kind of radio is it?
I must confess, it is a CC radio. As you know,
wait a minute.
Yes,
it's a C crane, isn't it? Or
yep, CC radio.
There you go. Okay, that's what for those who are new, John used to. John, they were a sponsor on John's radio show. So
Bob Crane is listening. His CC radio is still the best. And
there you go. Love you, John Rothmann. Around the Political World with John Rothmann. Got to run. We'll talk to you next Wednesday. John Rothmann, everybody. Bye-bye, pal. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.